President Moon Jae-in and Donald Trump held their third bilateral summit since taking office, but it's the first one here in South Korea. For details, let's go straight to our chief Blue House correspondent, Moon Connyoung. Connyoung, what's new?
Well, the South Korea-U.S. alliance, North Korea's nuclear threat, and Korea-U.S. free trade agreement. Now, all three topics were thoroughly discussed during the bilateral summit between Presidents Moon and Trump. Now, first on North Korea, South Korean President Moon Jae-in and U.S. President Donald Trump echoed in one voice that North Korea needs to curb its nuclear and missile development immediately and that it should come out to the negotiations table. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump said that he's ready to use all military process or military power that U.S. has, unparalleled to any other country, in order to curb North Korea's threats. But notice the tone, the difference in tone of Mr. Trump's language. He said that he is ready to use all available tools short of military action. Now, that's a score for President Moon, as he has been an advocate of peaceful resolution for North Korea's for the North Korean issue. So there has been that difference in tone, but both did try to pressure China and Russia and all other responsible nations to join in South Korea-U.S. efforts to pressure and sanction North Korea so that it could come out to the negotiations table and talk with the rest of the world. Now, second, the South Korea-U.S. alliance. Many a times the two leaders underscored how strong, how ironclad committed the two sides are on their decades-long South Korea-U.S. alliance. And one part of strengthening or further developing this alliance would be the U.S.'s agreement to lifting the warhead payload limits on South Korea's ballistic missiles. Now, also, the U.S. will work towards South Korea building more defense power by deploying surveillance assets here, and it will also aid in South Korea's defense capabilities through acquisition or development of advanced weapon systems, and that includes nuclear-powered submarines. So that's another point that they made during this bilateral summit. The military burden sharing, the cost sharing of U.S. forces in South Korea will also be divided between the two sides at reasonable levels. They didn't exactly define reasonable levels, but that's what the two leaders agreed on through this summit. Daniel.
Now, what about trade? It seemed to be the biggest thing on Trump's mind. On a number of occasions, he expressed his discontent with the South Korea-U.S. free trade agreements.
Well, sure. Mr. Trump made sure that the trade issue was discussed during this bilateral summit and the expanded summit. Both leaders have agreed to expedite the process of renegotiating the five-year-old free trade agreement between the two sides. It's an accord that President Donald Trump today at the joint news conference called an agreement that's both unsuccessful and not good for the United States. So they have agreed to make adjustments to that. Now, Mr. Trump also said that South Korea has agreed to purchase billions of dollars of military equipment from the U.S.
All right, let's look ahead, Connyoung. What's next for America's first couple during their two-day state visit to South Korea?
Well, so after a short break from after the joint news conference, Mr. Moon and Mrs. Moon, or Mr. Moon and First Lady Kim Jong-suk, are hosting a grand fete for a state dinner for President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump. They will be joined by hundreds of officials, business leaders, cultural figures from both countries, and the dinner will serve a menu that will satisfy the taste buds of President Trump and Melania Trump, of course, but while adhering to highlighting the local cuisine. So that, as well as cultural performances, a full orchestra is in-house at the Blue House today, and K-pop stars will enlighten the mood with their cultural, both traditional and modern pop performances. Daniel.
All right, Connyoung, thank you for those updates. That was our Moon Connyoung standing by at the Cheongwade or the Blue House.